It's Monday night and it's time for Date Time. And this evening we are going to be looking at Current Affairs Caribbean Edition. I'm your presenter, Odette Campbell. I have three distinguished gentlemen with me this evening. Peter Richards, he is St. Lucian living in Trinidad and Tobago. Garfield Burford, he is a Jamaican living in Antigua. And we have a man who decides he's staying at home, Denis Chabrol the Great in Guyana. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening to you. And good evening to Grenada.
And good evening to your listeners and viewers,
wherever they are in the world. And let me just say, Denis Chabrol, it is great to have you on Beyond the Headlines. And I have to confess, as a young journalist growing up, he was one of the people I always admired listening to via Kana in Georgetown. This is Denis Chabrol, Kana Radio News. So Denis, it's the first time I'm actually seeing your face live. We've never met in person. So I'm really happy to have you with us this evening. And thank God for technology that has opened up the doorways for us.
I didn't want to say you missed nothing, but then go on. That's all right.
Denis, Denis, since he's been so unkind, you want to tell the entire world what is his official title?
I wouldn't do that to Peter. I wouldn't do that.
All right, okay. So Peter is no stranger to Beyond the Headlines. He's facilitated several programs with us in the past, especially when we delve deeply into the whole Venezuelan migrant crisis. Garfield Burford, he's made a name in Grenada. People keep asking, when you bring back Garfield? So Garfield, it's wonderful to have you again. So gentlemen, tonight we are looking at Current Affairs, a Caribbean edition, and we've got a full slate, so we need to keep moving along. So there's the issue of mandatory vaccination. That's a hot topic in Grenada. I understand it's being discussed in other islands as well. The first cruise ship of the season set sail and is going to the Gulf of Mexico. That happened yesterday. We look at that. We have the whole issue of migrants being deported. We've had some arrivals of Vincentians, Venezuelans, and last week we had a report of 3 Brazilians arriving on Grenadian shores. They said they came to transact business. That's something we'd like to look at. We have the Citizenship by Investment program, which is causing a stir in Grenada, and we have in Antigua and Dominica some cross-border trading of a gentleman going on. Garfield will have to tell us about that and what's happening there. In Grenada last week, the government said it won a case against a police officer who said that he was unfairly treated in terms of promotion. That's a big issue in Guyana, and Denis will be taking us along. It is just a few of the issues. Our CARICOM specialist, Peter Richards, he is going to talk about the handing over of the baton that's to take place. And of course, he is conversant with all of the issues, being the leader on the Caribbean Media Corporation regional desk. There's a thing about RS. I'll tell you what that means at the end of the program. So who is going to launch us off? Let's start probably with mandatory vaccination. And one of the things, just to bring us up to speed a little bit, we look back at part of a story in Grenada. St. George's University has said to some workers, if you're not vaccinated, you're not allowed on the compound. So let me ask the producer to assist us with that, and then we come and start the discussions.
Any workplace that you're working, if the employer tells you that you must be vaccinated to continue working, please do not resign. Please do not resign. If the employer insists that you can't come on the compound and is not paying you, if you have a union, your union will take up the matter, engage a company, and then it will go through the different process.
This was the message to all employees from TAU President General Andre Lewis, who also holds the posts as Labour Senator and President of the Trade Union Council. The Technical and Allied Workers Union was present at the entrance to St. George's University on Tuesday morning as unvaccinated employees were refused entry into the compound. On May 12th, SGU issued a statement reaffirming its commitment to a safe return to campus for the August term by requiring COVID-19 vaccination for all students, faculty and staff among others on campus starting June 15th. On Tuesday, those who ignored the advice of their union to not show up for work were present, while others were seen being checked on entry for their vaccination cards.
We wrote the workers and advising them that based on what the school have said, those who are not vaccinated ought not to come to the gate because the school will not allow you to come in. The workers were concerned as to whether or not, if they didn't show up to the gate, they could be accused of abandoning their job. So we wrote them, pointed out that you cannot be accused of abandoning your job because it is the school who told you not to come.
Lewis says, having engaged SGU since February, while maintaining that vaccination ought not to be a condition of employment, they are now at this point.
The school obviously has disagreed with us. in the context that the workers are not dismissed. So the workers are still employed with the school. They are not allowing them to come to the compound, and they are saying that they will not be paid. We have a totally different view, and because this has happened today for the first time in terms of the actual application of that policy, we are in the process of engaging the school to start the industrial dispute resolution process.
He outlines the process the union will take toward a resolution.
We will ask the workers to contact the union. We will discuss with the workers and all of the different options in terms of the process. Certainly there must be an engagement with the school again, because there are no new conditions now. Whereas before yesterday, one couldn't say with certainty that this is the final amount of people. We know as of today, there must be a final amount of people who have not been vaccinated. And therefore that can influence the discussion as to a possible resolution.
GBN contacted HDU for a comment on this development and was informed that a statement will be issued soon. I am Gerard Joseph for GBN News.
And the university did issue a statement outlining what the policy was and reflected on the fact that for the past 15 months, the workers have been at home, but they have been fully compensated. So, Garfield, any similarities in Antigua where you're based, or probably been hearing from your kinfolk in Jamaica?
Right. So the issue of mandatory vaccination, and good evening again, by the way, to you, Odette, and to Peter, and to as well Denis, and to all your listeners and your viewers. It really is august company that I'm in, and I'm really honored to be here. So yes, it's been a really fraught issue, this matter of mandatory vaccination. Again, just to make sure that we're able to clearly contextualize the issue and to dichotomize what will be compulsory vaccination versus mandatory vaccination. What is being discussed is mandatory vaccination, which would mean, for example, denying certain privileges for certain individuals or denying certain opportunities for certain individuals if they are not vaccinated, as opposed to, holding somebody against their will and, and jabbing their arms with a vaccine. So what is being discussed is mandatory vaccination, which would be there would be certain privileges that the individual would not be able to get, and certain opportunities that they would not be able to enjoy if they do not get vaccinated. So it's the government here, Prime Minister Gaston Brown has indicated, look, there's no appetite to do that. The government at one point indicated that it could be put on the table as a last resort, but Cabinet has taken no decision on it, and certainly it has not gone to Parliament in terms of countenance that. But even when the issue was broached as a possible last resort, there was quite a bit of a stir in terms of some sections of society saying, look, that is absolutely unconstitutional. Nobody should be forced to do that. And here's a big issue as well, Odette. About 2 months ago, the president of the Antigua Barbuda Hotels and Tourism Association indicated that, the chairman I should have been, indicated that for people who are seeking employment in future in the hotel industry, those who are not vaccinated can just essentially forget about it. In other words, they will not even be considered for employment going forward. As it relates to people who are already employed in the tourism industry, it has been indicated that, look, no particular approach, it's going to be about moral suasion, trying to encourage people and trying to cajole them. But nothing in terms of mandatory vaccination, and nothing in terms of, you lose your job if you don't get vaccinated. But for people who are applying for future employment in the tourism, in the hotel industry, the Hotels and Tourism Association has made it clear, absolutely not.
All right. Peter, what are you hearing?
If I may come in there, Odette, it's interesting that we're talking about the mandatory vaccination. And in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I think earlier this month, the Prime Minister said, and I want to put it into perspective as to what he said, that vaccination can be ordered for both private and public sector workers, and that the law allows a person to be legally fired if they refuse to be vaccinated. His argument is that in the case of both the public and private sectors, the employer has a right to have a safe place of work, including a healthy place for you to work. Now, given the pandemic that we have, the COVID-19, it is obvious that employers and even the employee would want to know that he or she is working in an environment that they do not contract that virus. It's not a virus where you could probably say okay, I could stay home tomorrow and after one day I'll feel good. You know what's happening. The chances are of imminent death or imminent demise going forward. So you would obviously want an environment where you would want people to feel comfortable working. And I believe in all instances, given what we've been told, the COVID-19 is a pandemic that, despite the vaccines and what have you, this is something we now have to, as Caribbean people, as global people, as part of the world, we now have to live with that pandemic. And if we have to live with that pandemic, there are certain things that we have to agree to abide by. And one of them would be taking a vaccination. You may not like it. Some people, in fact, I was surprised reading a press release out of St. Kitts today, where the opposition leader, Dr. Denzel Douglas, a doctor, a surgeon, has said that he was not taking, based on whatever beliefs and what have you, he was not taking the vaccine, but at the same time, he was not telling people not to take the vaccine. So we have the vaccine hesitancy going forward. We have all these issues that we have to deal with, but at the same time, we also have to preserve lives and livelihoods.
So the Ministry of Health in Grenada, the Chief Medical Officer, I'm seeing him saying, I just love Peter Richards tonight. Denis, what's happening in Guyana as far as mandatory vaccination is concerned? That's a terminology being used in some circles.
Yes, well, we have not had any instructions, so to speak, for mandatory vaccination, but the president of Guyana, Dr. Finale, some weeks ago had indicated that perhaps we may go the route of a vaccination passport, essentially meaning that you will not be allowed to enter certain places to conduct business unless you can prove that you have been vaccinated. It is really a chicken and egg situation. What do you do as an employer or an employee? In the case of the employee, you would want to preserve their job and hopefully you will get vaccinated. I saw recently the Queen's Counsel in Barbados, Sir Hal Gallup, pronouncing the whole question of workplace safety in the context of occupational safety and health, and essentially saying that vaccination should be, compulsory vaccination should not be used as a mechanism to endanger the lives of other workers. If you have to be vaccinated, then that is the case, and therefore you should not find yourself as an employer having other workers be exposed to the virus. In Guyana, as I said, we are focusing on ensuring that everyone is vaccinated as far as possible to build up what the health ministry calls herd immunity. Whether indeed we will find ourselves doing that is another matter as far as the numbers are concerned, because as you know, our vaccination program for some days now has been mired in controversy, with the politicians again taking a position in the opposition against the use of the Sputnik V vaccine, that's a particular batch, and the government insisting that the vaccines are safe. You also see what's going on in parts of Europe and North America, where they're also saying that they're only accepting certain types of vaccines. In fact, I was reading a report earlier that, only vaccines that are made in Europe or North America will be accepted. So even though you may get an AstraZeneca vaccine that's made in India, that may not necessarily be acceptable for people going off to North America and Europe. So to bring us back to Guyana, I think the position being taken by the authorities now is one of moral suasion. Go take your vaccine and ensure that you do not spread the virus to other people and reduce the deaths.
So, Denis, do you know what percentage of the Guyanese population has been vaccinated thus far?
As far as the number of persons who have been vaccinated with both doses is just about 20%, and those with one dose, about 40%.
Okay. And what's the situation in Antigua, Garfield? Garfield, unmute. Garfield.
Yes, so sorry about that. Yes, so we're going to be using the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine in Antigua and Barbuda. And so far, around about 36,000 individuals. The population roughly would be 100,000, and so far 36,000 or so have already been vaccinated with their first dose. Another close to 28,000 people have gone on to take a second dose. So if close to, let's say, 38% you're looking at who would have taken their first dose. It's not moving badly, and in fact, it has picked up somewhat. By the way, there have been some incentives which have been put in place. So there is a raffle for land, a plot of land valued at about 68,000 EC dollars, which is being made available for a lucky individual who's just, it's called Land for Jobs. There's also a Cash for Jobs initiative where there are 4 draws of $5,000 each, EC. 2 individuals have now actually gotten, the draw has taken place for 2 individuals who actually have gotten their winnings. So 2 more draws to come. So those are some of the incentives. There's also a petrol incentive for a $50 voucher for people who go to get vaccinated, a petrol voucher to fill up their tanks or to put some petrol in their tanks. And other initiatives which have been tried by the government as well as private individuals and private businesses who have actually collaborated with the government. So I think that has helped to push the numbers up a bit. Not as quickly as the government would have wanted, but it's been picking up a bit slowly in recent times.
Peter, what kind of feedback you've had in terms of numbers from some of the other Caribbean islands in terms of percentage of people already vaccinated, as well as some of the incentives being offered across the region?
I think in some of the Caribbean islands, you have a better, as compared to, let's say, Trinidad and Tobago, where the population, in Trinidad, the population is about 1.3 million. And in the smaller islands is between, let's say, 100,000 to 200,000. So you'd get a quicker vaccination or a higher rate of vaccination in the smaller islands than, let's say, in Trinidad's case. Trinidad, there isn't no incentive. I guess the only incentive now is that the death rate has been increasing. And as a result of that, you see people now moving to get vaccinated as quickly as possible. They don't care whether it's the AstraZeneca, whether it's the Russian made. As a matter of fact, there's even interest now in the Cuban vaccine, which, although not yet approved by the World Health Organization, that I think just last weekend, the Cubans said that their vaccine is highly effective, at least something like 98% or something like that.
92.8%.
Right. So that means that there is an incentive. In fact, last night I was listening to the Dominica Prime Minister, Roosevelt Skerritt, on his program, and he was saying that he wanted all Dominicans to, as soon as a vaccine is available to you, take it, regardless of whatever it is, because the important thing, particularly for us in the Caribbean, we are not producers of vaccines. We are people waiting through COVAX and what have you. And we know the problems with COVAX. We know the problems with the export of vaccines to the Caribbean. We're also seeing what's taking place vis-a-vis the United States promising to give vaccines to the Caribbean. So far, they have only identified among Caribbean countries, Haiti. And so therefore, we're into a situation as to how soon we could be getting vaccines. Another point I wanted to just bring up quickly is that in Belize, the education ministry is urging teachers to get vaccinated, fully vaccinated, ahead of the new school term, simply because in recent weeks, there have been clusters of positive COVID cases in a number of schools. And what the ministry is saying, hey, if you are going to be teaching children and going to be interacting with children going forward, as a matter of fact, just as in equal proportion as the parents, it means therefore that you have to have some form of protection. And I think that's a good idea in order to get some form of, if you are a parent, you'll want to know at least the person teaching your child has been fully vaccinated.
The good news came on the weekend, really, about the Cuban vaccine. We had discussed it on a program some weeks ago. Let's just take a quick look at that report, and then we come back, because we want to look at the implication of all of this for tourism, which many of the islands, including Grenada, are heavily dependent upon. So let's look at the Cuban success story.
Scientists were ecstatic when the results were announced. Phase 3 clinical trials show their vaccine, Abdala, is among the world's most effective. And on the streets of Havana, people say they're proud of their country's achievement.
Vaccines normally take 10 years to develop, so making one in a year and a half is a record. Cuba is a medical powerhouse, and coming up with this vaccine is really special. And the fact that it's free is even better.
I'm very proud because it's one of Cuban scientists' biggest achievements. It's taken a huge effort.
Only 10 countries in the world have their own vaccine, and at this rate, Cuba will become the first country in the developing world to vaccinate its entire population with its own vaccine.
The project's leader admits the results surprised him.
I didn't expect the result to be as high as 92% efficacy. We're extraordinarily happy. Our vaccine is now the 4th most effective in the world.
The result is a rare piece of good news for an island that's seen its economy plummet during the pandemic, and a relief for the Communist Party, which says US sanctions have slowed down the vaccine's development.
They've done everything possible so not a drop of fuel gets here. They've done everything possible so that medicines don't get here. But in 13 months, you've come up with results.
Cuba has refused to import foreign coronavirus vaccines, betting instead on 5 homegrown versions. The government is close to broke, but has poured every last cent into vaccine development and production.
And Peter, some people were, really concerned about the fact we've had this reporter here mentioning that Cuba is broke but has put all of his monies into the development of vaccines, and they thought that CARICOM probably should have pumped some money into the development of the Cuban vaccine. What are your thoughts on that?
One thing we have to be careful about is CARICOM has already been pumping money through COVAX. CARICOM has a very close relationship with Cuba. As a matter of fact, last week at the United Nations, again, there was a vote to end the trade and economic embargo against Cuba. And that was, with the exception, of course, of the United States, Israel, and I think one other country, the vote was carried. CARICOM countries, because of their close relationship, remember we also have in place the CARICOM-Cuba Joint Initiative, the CARICOM Joint Commission. And that would enable us, because we are seen, the CARICOM countries are seen as one of Cuba's strongest allies globally. And so that would assist the CARICOM countries in getting vaccines, particularly if these vaccines are approved quickly by the World Health Organization. I think only Guyana and some of the CARICOM countries, in a haste to ensure that their citizens are vaccinated, have gone beyond the COVAX facility and beyond the WHO-approved vaccines to vaccinate people. Now, that may have some aspect of leading to hesitancy among the population. But again, we have to take into consideration that, as the report noted, vaccines usually take 10 years to develop. But we also have to remember, when the COVID-19 pandemic broke out, many countries had already had in place their scientists. They were pumping money. The United States, all these developed countries were already pumping money into getting a vaccine. So it is not right to generalize and say, boy, a vaccine takes 10 years to develop, and here you have a vaccine within 13 months or a year, 2 years, or what have you. You had the base already settled, and so it was just a question of developing. And on your question of getting CARICOM countries to put money into Cuba and helping Cuba develop the vaccine, I don't think that was going to be something that CARICOM would have looked at. What probably CARICOM would probably look at is purchasing the vaccines from Cuba rather than at this time, because as I said, it's right here now in the Caribbean. Its efficacy is very high, and we would want that.
Great. And let's just look at...
I think also, Peter, just to add to that, given the experience...
You're breaking up, Dennis.
Yes, I was saying that Peter, that given the experience of Guyana and to some extent Antigua and Barbuda about the Sputnik vaccine, you may find that a number of the Caribbean countries may be a bit hesitant in going ahead with the Cuban vaccine until it is approved by the World Health Organization. Because, as you said earlier as well, the whole question of vaccine hesitancy is one that needs to be properly addressed. So if you go the route of getting another vaccine that is possibly going to be mired in controversy, it may very well defeat the purpose of having persons take the vaccine.
All right, so I know that
there's also a geopolitical element as well.
Obviously, there's a politics involved. I mean, I like to refer to it as the politics of vaccine. We had, for example, politics. India coming forward and provided vaccines to the Caribbean countries. And that was done because India, as you know, India is trying to be a heavyweight, quote unquote, in this new geopolitical situation. So you have India on the one hand providing vaccines. You have the United States, because of what was happening, China's voyage, if you want to put it that way, into the Caribbean and providing vaccines. The United States could not be seen as, hey, we're not going to send you vaccines. We are in the United States backyard, as they like to say. And if they are not sending vaccines to your backyard, and you're having people further away from the backyard, in the drawing room or where have you, sending in vaccine, it would make the U.S. look bad. So you have the politics of vaccine also playing out. And that's another thing Caribbean countries have to deal with.
All right, so we can spend the entire night on vaccines, but we know we have a packed schedule ahead of us. Let's jump ahead, continue with COVID-19 for a little bit, and this time we're looking at tourism. So the producer's asking me to take a commercial break and then come back, and we may have to skip that segment, but let's do that.
Good morning, Grand Lake Meter Reader.
Morning, Mr. Meterman. I'm glad I caught you. Last month, I got a very high bill, and I don't understand why.
Last month, we were not able to access your meter, so we had to estimate the bill.
So what can I do to ensure that my meter is easily accessible?
Well, you can get your licensed electrician to move your meter outside of the gate or directly in front of the house.
Well, I'll consider that.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Introducing Color by Seasons. 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 Color by Seasons.
Get vaxxed, hey, hey, vaccinated. Get vaxxed, hey, hey, get vaccinated. Vaccinated. So wear your mask, wash your hands, and practice social distance. This is we chance to advance. Come let we fight this COVID at once. So come on, let we fall in line. We want to come back to with social life. There is vaccination island wide. So come on, let we fight it to protect we and we family.
This is a message from the Grenada Red Cross and the Ministry of Health.
you're already ill and have no time or energy to walk every which way to access your healthcare needs, so come to Spice Isle Imaging on the Carenage for a one-spot stop for all your health service needs. See our in-house doctor and get your meds from the pharmacy right on location. Digital X-ray, MRI, CT scans, mammography, ultrasound and laboratory services are also available. So for that moment when life makes demands on you, you can make demands on us. Visit us at Spice Isle Imaging, Carenage, St. George's.
Customer services, bill payment, revenue collections. We are open. NOASA's Lucas Street headquarters.
Come, we are excited to serve you.
NOASA, committed to meeting customers' needs.
I'm reaching my dreams with GOT. They're the ones for me. I'm reaching my dreams with GOT. They're the ones for me. Since 1983, they've been serving the country, and we like all their financing, giving the people what they want, what they need, what they love. Come and join the family that's here for you all the way, from birth to graduation, your first job to your home, and your card through your golden years.
The GT Credit Union has been actively supporting nation building through its many sponsorships and the programs including Financial Literacy Quiz, Pass the Torch Calypso Program, Junior Cooperatives in Secondary Schools, CPEA, and the TAMCC Grants. The credit union has helped many people make their dreams come true. Let them help you with yours. You don't have to be a teacher to be a member. So what are you waiting for?
GUT Credit Union, it's where you belong.
Welcome back to this week's edition of Beyond the Headlines. This week we're looking at current affairs and we're looking at a Caribbean perspective. I have three of the Caribbean's most esteemed journalists and media practitioners. We have Garfield Burford out of Antigua. He is Jamaican, living in Antigua, working in Antigua, doing an excellent job from what we've seen. Mr. Peter Richards, the man himself, he is Lucian by birth, but he's grounded in Trinidad and Tobago. He has an RS title that I'll only be able to tell you at the end of the program, because if I do say it, I think he'll just drop off the link. And in Guyana, on the South American continent, we have Mr. Denis Chabrol, somebody who I'm happy to meet for the first time tonight virtually. Always heard his voice on Kana Radio News. So, gentlemen, we've been looking at COVID-19. We've been looking at vaccination and the politics of vaccines and some of those issues surrounding that. Now, let's look at the economics and tourism, because Antigua, Grenada, and a lot of the other Caribbean islands depend heavily on tourism, and they're really hoping that COVID-19 could be gone. So yesterday we had a report with one of the cruise ships coming back for the first time. They're starting in the Gulf of Mexico. Let's look at that and we come back and continue the discussions.
Tonight, the celebrity cruise ship Edge is in the Gulf of Mexico. Day 2 of a 7-day real-world test. Can the cruise ship industry operate in a world still with COVID?
You have 62 ships. When do all of those other ships actually start carrying passengers?
Well, we're bringing them on reasonably quickly. We're anxious to do it right, not fast. And so we think by the end of this year, we can have the bulk of our fleet up and operating.
On board the Edge, avid cruise blogger Stuart Chiron. This is his 278th cruise.
When someone calls a cruise ship a floating petri dish, their credibility's out the window. They've obviously never been on a cruise, and they don't understand the concept of how much space is available per person on these cruise ships.
On this voyage, there's more space than ever. The ship could hold 2,900 passengers, but to ensure social distancing, only 1,100 tickets were sold. As the ship departed Fort Lauderdale Saturday, the noisemakers on shore included travel agents, hopeful a multi-billion-dollar industry is finally back. Long-furloughed crew members showered paying passengers with gratitude as they boarded.
How does it feel now to be back on board working?
I feel like I'm finally home.
Cruise lines report advance bookings ratings for this year and 2022 are breaking records, a sign America is returning to a post-pandemic normal.
It feels like I'm out of jail. Out of jail because of COVID. Yes, this is the first time, I've been on a boat, actually been almost anywhere since COVID ended.
Do you feel you're on vacation? You're not wearing masks.
Oh my God. I feel like I'm on vacation, total vacation.
The captain plans the first stop for the ship in Costa Maya, Mexico. Any passengers getting off on a shore excursion will be in a bubble, working with a tour operator that is also following strict health protocols.
So, Garfield, I'm starting in Antigua because I know Grenada and Antigua really dependent on tourism.
Right. So that's good news, certainly. The cruise sector is crucial to this country's tourism sector generally. So there should be the return of a cruise vessel here in Antigua on the 20th of July, all other things being equal. And one of the areas that would have to be looked at is the extent to which unvaccinated travelers can also be on board, because in Florida, they've taken the decision, Ron DeSantis, who is the governor there, has taken decisions in relation to, as you know, he's a Republican and a very close ally of former President Trump. So he has his own views on, for example, the issue of curtailing certain privileges in relation to vaccination and so on. So he's taken a decision that will affect cruise lines that are operating out of Florida. So it may mean that the ones that are coming here in the Caribbean may not all have fully vaccinated individuals. There may be some unvaccinated people on board. So it really ensures, or it really puts the emphasis and the onus on stakeholders in the cruise industry to make sure that they are as much as possible vaccinated. The government here in Antigua and Barbuda, the Aston Barr administration, has said, look, we're going to encourage as much as possible the stakeholders in the cruise industry to get vaccinated, because they might be dealing with individuals, not all of whom are fully vaccinated. So that that puts it even more important to ensure that there's full vaccination. But yes, 60% roughly of the country's GDP is made up of tourism, both direct and indirect jobs, and in terms of the multiplier effect across the economy. And that's even a conservative estimate in terms of the number of the kind of impact on GDP. So it is good news generally when tourism is coming back. But I was fascinated by something that one of the individuals who was interviewed in that report said. The person said, look, this is the first time I'm coming on a cruise ship since COVID ended. Not sure what's the person's reality, while the person's suggesting that COVID has ended. COVID is going to be around with us for a little while yet. By the way, St. Kitts and Nevis has just reported that they have something called the Lambda, which is another letter of the Greek alphabet, another strain of COVID-19. And the World Health Organization has indicated that it is a variant of interest, not necessarily of concern at this point, but of interest. And St. Kitts and Nevis has been saying, look, we are concerned about the variant that we've seen here, because it is far more virulent and more transmissible on the face of it than what we had in 2020. And now the confirmation has come that it is a variant of interest, at least at this point.
All right, so I would only give Denis and Peter like 30 seconds to chime in on it, because I want us to skip to citizenship by investment, because I'm looking at the clock and it's like, where's the time going already? So Denis, in Guyana, we know probably you're not dependent on cruise tourism, but how has the airline and business been impacted?
Well, adversely, even though we are not a tourism destination, we also have small domestic carriers that essentially move, a small number of visitors, mostly those involved or interested in ecotourism. They have taken a hit also in the early days of the pandemic due to restriction of flights to bordering areas of Suriname and Brazil and Venezuela.
And Meg, there's a thing called...
They were also told that they will have to remain grounded. And that, of course, affected the profitability of the domestic carriers. On the other side, as far as expats coming from the oil industry, they have to be quarantined before they can actually move aboard to the oil rigs offshore. So in a sense, although not tourism, but visitors, we have also had our fair share of the impact domestically as well as internationally.
I think as we start to get more and more vaccines of people vaccinated in the Caribbean, we probably will be welcoming more of the cruise liners. But at the same time, I don't think we should be jumping to welcome cruise ships, as, for example, what we see occurring out of Florida, where people not vaccinated coming into the Caribbean. In fact, when the Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister announced over the weekend that the borders would be reopened on July 17, he made it abundantly clear unvaccinated people would not be welcomed into the country.
All right. So we would monitor that and see how that comes along. But let's jump ahead. The Citizenship by Investment program has been one of major talking points in several Caribbean islands. Garfield will have an interesting story to tell us. But we're starting in Grenada, where we've had recently one of the investors going tete-a-tete. So let's take that first, and then with the Prime Minister response, and when we go into Antigua, I'm certain Peter has a whole slate of stories to tell us out of several Caribbean islands, including Dominica. So let's first look at the resignation of investor.
Warren Newfield is the latest to hand in his resignation on Thursday as Ambassador at Large and Consul General to Florida on behalf of the government of Grenada. In a letter dated May 28, 2021, addressed to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Oliver Joseph, the developer behind Kimpton Corona Bay Resort cited anti-business policies as the reason for his resignation. The letter reads, and I quote, "Unfortunately, conditions in Grenada have changed drastically in the last few years. The country's leadership, previously having the country's best interests at heart, was welcoming to foreign investment and economic development, but has been transformed into an anti-business regime." End of quote. He cited the breaching of the agreement with the controlling shareholder of Grenlec as an example, with government having to pay $65 million to WRB. And I quote, "It is little wonder that the 2020 survey by the World Bank assessing ease of doing business in countries globally, Grenada ranked number 146th out of 190 nations. I have seen this deterioration firsthand. My business interests are hardly the only ones to be damaged by the regime's disregard for investor rights. The government has breached agreements with other businesses. Other than the recent fiasco with Grenlec, one only needs to look at the government's attempt to expropriate the Rex Hotel." End of quote. Newfield, in his resignation, says, as a Grenadian citizen, the country and its people have become extremely dear to him, and he has undertaken his duties with a strong sense of responsibility. GBN's attempts to speak to Mr. Newfield proved futile. Calls to his office in Miami went unanswered, and an employee at his local office for the project indicated that he is off the island. I am Gerard Joseph for GBN News.
Well, subsequently, we did get a response from Mr. Newfield, but one of the things we want to do before we start the discussion on that is to look at Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell's response.
Take in front before in front take you.
We cannot afford to explain to the nation if another shrimp farm fiasco emerges, says Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell, addressing the recent resignation of a member of the Diplomatic Corps to Grenada, Warren Newfield. Prime Minister Mitchell says they have a duty to investigate if there is any hint that a developer or entity's actions are contrary to the provisions under the CBI Act, and to put measures to address the same.
I said to him, and the Minister for Investment will remember, I said, I'm sure you're aware there's something called baseball. 1 strike, 2 strikes. The 3rd strike, what? You're out. So this resignation you see there, Mr. Speaker, is because he knows that he was out because he did it a 3rd time.
He adds that upon recognizing that the money collected via the CBI did not correlate with construction activities on the ground, an explanation was requested. The Prime Minister claims that the developer, although investing his initial 20%, sought to reimburse his investment via the CBI.
Because if your construction cost, as the engineer pointed out, is $30-something million and you collected over $50-something million already, You still you want another $40-something million in our application? I mean, I don't understand. That is what brought the whole thing down here, Mr. Speaker. So we said, no, we're not going to give you that large excess of money. What are you doing with it? Is something not being done, brought in Grenada to invest in the development of the country?
Dr. Mitchell says that is what brought on the hostility from the former diplomat, who is also the developer behind the Kimpton Corner Bay Resort.
You got into this big public spot with the government, and they almost have, in fact, saying that the country must change. Imagine a white man coming and tell we must change the government of Grenada. Could you believe this character? If I was in the street, I'd say another word.
GBN, after reaching out to Warren Newfield on Thursday via email after other efforts were futile, received a response that declined our request for an interview at this time due to legal advice received.
So, Peter, I can see you smiling all over. Peter, come, spit it out. What's going through your brain?
No, I am fascinated by the whole question. I mean, the CBI operates in the Caribbean under tremendous, how you want to put it? I'm looking for the exact word. Tremendous problems, not problems per se, but tremendous strict rules and regulations, particularly so as put forward by the OECD countries, the European Union. We are always blacklisted, green listed, gray listed, whatever you have it. And if the Prime Minister could go to a parliament and bring out these sort of measures or these sort of incidents or innuendos, as I would say, on the whole situation, it means therefore that something isn't right. And it's better that Grenada deals with it now than the rest of the Caribbean continue to be blacklisted or grey listed because of one situation. And that's why I was laughing. I mean, the question of whether a white man comes and let a black man, I mean, we all know what that is about.
So we soon have to take a commercial break, but Garfield, in Antigua, do you have any challenges with your citizenship by investment program?
Right, so it has always continued to be a contentious issue here in Antigua and Barbuda as well. The most recent matter, which has developed, Odette and Peter and Denis, would pertain to what has happened with a certain gentleman called Mehul Choksi. Mehul Choksi is an Indian-born diamond mogul. He got Antigua and Barbudan citizenship through the Citizenship by Investment program, around about 2018 or so. And then after that, a few months later, there was a few matters emerged in India in which they actually called for and actually charged him with fraud and other matters. In fact, they keep updating the charge sheet for Mehul Choksi. So the list of charges, it's becoming a litany at this point. So Mehul Choksi says the government here in Antigua and Barbuda receives from India a request for the extradition of Mehul Choksi. Remember, he's a CIP citizen now. He got his citizenship after all the due diligence was done. So the Citizenship by Investment Unit says, look, we did our due diligence. We were scrupulous. We were meticulous in our due diligence. And everything was above board. Later, we heard that he, of course, was charged with these matters, which, by the way, he denies in terms of the fraud charges with the Punjab National Bank. The government of India sends a request for his extradition. He's fighting that in the courts here in Antigua and Barbuda. Since then, the government of Antigua and Barbuda also wants to revoke his citizenship, which he got through the Citizenship by Investment program. So revocation of his citizenship being sought, as well as the fact that the government is also trying to have him extradited. It turns out now that he goes missing in Antigua and Barbuda, goes missing, eventually is found 2 days later or so in Dominica. He claims, and so people are saying, wow, it seems like he, tried to flee. I mean, he's a fugitive. He's wanted in India. There's a red corner notice from Interpol. So people were speculating, could he have, it seems like he's fled. So a bombshell story comes out. He says, look, I didn't go there on my own volition. I was kidnapped and taken there against my own will to Dominica. And lo and behold, the authorities in Dominica charge him with illegal entry. So he says he was kidnapped, taken there against his will. Dominican authorities charge him with illegal entry. So he's now before the courts, the magistrate's court in Dominica, with illegal entry as a charge. He's also fighting to prevent him being deported indirectly from Dominica to India. So he wants to come back to Antigua. He wants to be deported back to Antigua, where he's a citizen, and then he's hoping to continue his fight against his extradition and against the revocation of his citizenship. So the upshot of all this is people are asking, has this done any sort of damage to the citizenship by investment program? And one of depending on the school of thought you get, Odette and Peter and Dennis, is that, look, the kind of publicity that it gets, it is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, the government would say, look, this shows that we are scrupulous. We are absolutely on point in terms of our due diligence. On the other hand, though, there are some people who say, look, but hold on, you kind of threw him under the bus here. Here's a CIP citizen, and the government wasn't willing to stand up for him. So again, you have different sides that you can take on it. But the government, of course, is taking the position that, look, this shows that we are absolutely above board and scrupulous with our due diligence.
You know, one thing that is very interesting.
Peter, hold on. Let me just crave your indulgence. We must take a commercial break because we have a commercial engagement that must go at 9:30. We see the time. So let's take that, pay that bill, honor that commitment, and come right back on Beyond the Headlines.
I'm a winner, you are winner, we are winners, winners.
It's the big one. Grenada. Imagine winning $25,000 and up to 6 times by scratching just one little ticket. Get your triple cash scratch tickets for a chance to live your best life. Win easy with Scratch. For just $3, match any of your numbers to any of the winning numbers and win the prize shown for that number. Reveal a money back symbol and win the prize instantly. Triple cash scratch in stores now. Must be 18 or older to play.
Cause I'm a winner. From the moment that I get up, I'm feeling right.
Good evening, viewers and listeners. This is the National Lotteries Authority's Lotto Draw number 3230 for today, Monday, June 28th, 2021. I'm your draw hostess, Leslie Ann Johnson. Supervising the draw tonight is Miss Josanne Clark. She's representing PKF accountants and business advisors. So we're playing for $82,000 tonight. But of course, before we select our 5 winning numbers, we'll select the free ticket letter. Okay, here we go. Our free ticket letter for tonight is A as in apple. Check to see if it matches that on your ticket. If it does, of course, you can claim your free ticket at your outlet of purchase. So we'll now select a nice 5 winning numbers for $82,000. Good luck to you. Check your tickets. Our first number for tonight. That number is 33. Second number. Tonight's third number. 1, fourth number. 8, fifth and final number. That number is 5. So just to recap for your benefit, starting with the free ticket letter, that is A as in apple. And our 5 winning numbers for $82,000 are 33, 33, 303, 101, 808, and 505. Congratulations if you are tonight's lucky winner. Continue supporting the National Lotteries Authority. Have a great night.
By now, you should know that the early bird catches the worm. So, what are you waiting for? Put wings to your feet and head to your nearest scratch seller. For every Quick 7's scratch ticket you buy at $2, the NLA gives you 7 chances at winning as much as $7,000. Scratch the entire play area for your 7 chances at revealing as much 7s and win the corresponding prizes. Win easy with Scratch. Must be 18 or older to play.
How going on, boy?
Hey, good old things.
Hey, easy.
Yeah.
Boy, in line, boy. Your house looking a real good day.
Boy, it's thanks to the hard-working and professional staff at the Housing Authority of Grenada. They handled me real nice. They did my plan, they did the construction, and I didn't even have to worry about a thing. They were there with me every step of it, supervising the job, asking me about my concerns, giving me feedback as the house took shape. They were there from start to finish, and even put the keys in the palm of my hand. I give them an A++ for customer service.
Oh, it's people from housing bad, boy.
Boy, not bad. Excellent. If you're thinking about constructing your home, why not consult the Housing Authority of Grenada? You could visit them right down in the Sandino complex, or give them a call, 440-1015 or 440-1016. Or check out their website, hag473.com. They go handle you. They go jog your blocks, they go draw your plan, they go tote your materials. Hey man, where you going? The Housing Authority of Grenada is your choice for affordable housing and a stress-free construction experience.
Are you looking for quality herbs and herbal supplements, or are you thinking about having a complete body cleanse to jumpstart your health? Then no need to look further. Visit Nirvana Natural Health Clinic, Detox Center, and Natural Health Store. We carry a wide range of herbal products for kidney and gallstone cleansing, male sexual enhancement formulas, asthma and sinusitis, gas and bloating, acid reflux, constipation, arthritis, imbalanced hormones, female health issues, liver cleansing, weight loss, and so much more. Also available, colonic irrigation, holistic health consultations, essential oils, and diffusers. Look out for our online natural health store coming soon. Call 231-6642 for 18-7115 or 449-7753 to find out about our delivery options or to book an appointment. Visit us at Belmont St. George's, close to the Fallage, Monday to Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Nirvana Natural Health Clinic. Detox your way to health.
Total is one of the world's largest oil companies with a top quality line of lubricants. Total Lubricants has a full product line from passenger cars, motorcycle, heavy industrial equipment, mining, trucking, agriculture, and manufacturing machines and vehicles. Total Lubricants, winning championships in motorsports, including Formula One and World Rally Championships. Total Lubricants are available at all Rubis service stations, leading automotive shops, and distributed by Huggins.
Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. This evening, we're looking at current affairs, a Caribbean edition. We have Denis Chabrol from South America, Guyana to be exact, Peter Richards, St. Lucian, dwelling in Trinidad and Tobago, but covering the Caribbean. And in Antigua, we have our Jamaican friend, Mr. Burford, Garfield Burford. So, gentlemen, we were looking at that very tangled web that we weave in the Caribbean in the Citizenship by Investment program. Garfield gave us a very intriguing story there. Peter, you wanted to say something before we tossed a break.
No, what I said was, what I wanted to say was, last night on his program, Anupale, the Dominica Prime Minister, Roosevelt Skerritt, said that Chusky would have his time in court, and he's certain that the independence of the court will prevail. And they're a little bit tongue-in-cheek when he said that, for example, that Chusky said that he is innocent of the crimes and what have you, and Skerritt was more or less hinting that even if you know you kill somebody, you know you turn around and tell somebody, you tell your friends or you tell people, you know, I do it. So, I mean, it was a little tongue-in-cheek. But you also have to remember, Dominica is also one of the countries with the CBI. And as a matter of fact, Dominica is building its own international airport. And Skerritt has said that because of the CBI, the island has now been able to get the funding, because he said before the various financial institutions globally, they were not prepared to put money into an international airport in Dominica. So you have the CBI. In fact, most of the Caribbean countries, I think the only country that within the OECS grouping, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and that's a policy decision taken by the Ralph Gonsalves administration in saying that it is not going to be part of any CBI program where you sell your passport or your citizenship to an investor. Under the CBI, it means that the investor makes a significant investment in the socio-economic development of the country in return for citizenship. Gonzalez has equated that to some form of colonialism, and his philosophy and his political and economic philosophy, as he says, does not mesh, does not allow him to have, even though the opposition in St. Vincent and the Grenadines have been pushing for the island to join on the CBI bandwagon.
All right, so we wanted to go now to two thorny issues, and we would leap on them from Guyana standpoint. We have the whole issue of migration across the region. Trinidad had an issue a year and a half ago, Peter, I believe, with Venezuelans crossing over because of the political upheaval in that country. And forever and a day, there's the issue of Haitians trying to find some kind of place that they can find some peace in because of the political and socioeconomic challenges in Haiti. The Dominican Republic started building a wall. Interesting. Let's look at the report. It's not the most recent one, but we had a case where two Haitians, they were living in Chile, entered Guyana, landed themselves in some hot water. Let's look at that report and then we come back. And
Taylor claims that at the time the Haitians were arrested, Cuban migrants were also apprehended. However, she alleged that they were not dealt with in the same manner.
There were Cubans that were held on that same entry. They were fined a lesser charge and they were deported. They have committed the same offense as these Haitians who came from Chile. That's where they have their residence, in Chile. Why weren't they dealt with the same way?
Taylor claims that while Freeman is trying his best to handle the situation in prison, the same cannot be said for Jean, who has reportedly since attempted suicide whilst in custody.
She wasn't eating, and before she was sent off to the Berbice prison, she was in the hospital. She's hypertensive, and she had a surgery done some months ago, and she's very ill.
According to Taylor, if she was aware that her relatives had plans to enter the country illegally, she would have advised them against it. Nonetheless, she expressed a strong belief that the Haitians were dealt with in an unjust manner.
I think it was an injustice. I mean, it was harsh. They're two, not young, but elderly folks. They don't mean any harm to this country. The condition in the country from where they came, they're only seeking a life, a better life.
Over the years, the number of migrants entering Guyana's shores has increased drastically as a result of persons seeking greener pastures. In December 2020, 26 Haitians were being held by the government of Guyana at the Hugo Chavez Rehabilitation and Reintegration Center. The foreign nationals, 10 men, 9 women, and 7 children, had arrived in Guyana on November 7 and were reportedly granted a 6-month stay. However, the Haitians allegedly gave incorrect information to immigration officers about where they would be staying while in the country, and days after they were found at the City Hotel and in a minibus on the Linden-Mabaruma Road, which constituted a violation of their stay. Chief Justice Roxanne George had halted the deportation of the Haitians who had opted to leave the protective custody of the center to an address of their choice. Photos and videos of the Haitian migrants standing on the street corner brought heavy criticism to the government, who maintained that they were not ill-treating the Haitians. Reporting for the AGP Nightly News, Kendall Richmond.
So, Denis, how much is that a problem in Guyana? Like we said earlier, we've had the situation where we had 2 Vincentians who arrived here illegally. They were fined and deported. We had 3 Brazilians arriving on Grenadian shores. A couple months ago, the police picked up several Venezuelans. They were also fined and deported. So this whole issue of people crossing borders in Guyana, how acute is this, especially among Haitians?
Well, yes, I think it is a major problem because the figures as released by the Guyana government, regardless of which party has been in power, shows that between 2015 and 2021, 38,187 persons of Haitian nationality entered Guyana legally. They landed here through the immigration checkpoints at the Chadi Jagan International Airport or at the Eugene F. Correa International Airport. But the records are also showing that just about 3,913 left the country legally via a port of exit. And the authorities have been saying, dating back to 2015, while the previous government had been in office, that's the APNU-AFC, that this certainly is something that raises a red flag because a lot of them are coming here illegally, but very few are departing legally. The information coming out of Brazil, for instance, shows that thousands of Haitians are leaving Guyana, going through the Linden to Lethem Road, Lethem being a town in southern Guyana near the Brazil border, and they cross there without passing through immigration. So we have a situation where, unlike decades gone by, you had the Haitian boat people leaving Haiti and going on to the Bahamas and Jamaica and eventually Florida. Now they're shifted south and they're coming this side through Guyana, ending up in Brazil or Suriname, then on to French Guyana. The question really is, for many people, is what does this constitute? Yes, they're CARICOM nationals. They're entitled up to recently the 6 months automatic stay on entry in Guyana. But we saw in the last week or so the president of Guyana revoking that order, that 2019 order, and reinstituting visa requirements for Haitians who are CARICOM nationals. And therefore, some argue that they're entitled to automatic 6-month entry, they're entitled to free movement through the region. But we also have had a situation where Guyanese had faced a great degree of stigma not so long ago, moving through the Caribbean. Immigration authorities in Trinidad and Barbados and Antigua, and to some extent St. Lucia, had all been on high alert for Guyanese moving through the Caribbean in search of a better life. So the question really has to be looked at from all angles. On the one hand, you have the free movement aspect. On the other hand, you have the people smuggling aspect. We're not talking about trafficking in persons, which is a different concept from people smuggling. If you look at what the International Organization for Migration defines as people smuggling, it really is the facilitation of the movement of people from one country to the other by illegal means, facilitating the entry into other countries by illegal means. But what about the compassionate aspect? That brings us to the other question. What do we do for our CARICOM brothers and sisters who are in economic distress, so to speak, who are fleeing politically unfavorable circumstances in their homeland, political instability? But the final destination for many of them is North Guyana. They're moving on to Brazil, Suriname, and French Guyana. So it's a complex issue. And I dare say that any government, any party in power, whether it be the People's Progressive Party Civic Administration that's currently in office, or the then APNU-AFC, they would have to take a long, hard look at an issue like this, given the regional, international, and domestic implications. The jury is out about how do we treat them because they're CARICOM.
Yeah.
But there are other factors that we have to consider.
Great. Peter, your CARICOM hat is on. It's an issue I'm certain that you've covered for several years.
Well, first and foremost, people, I'm a regionalist. And because of that, I am not in favor of many Caribbean countries, even under the CARICOM single market and economy that allows for the free movement of goods, services, people, and what have you. For us to be imposing visa restrictions and visa requirements on Haitian nationals even though Haiti is a full member of CARICOM. Haiti is not an observer member of CARICOM, it's a full member. And therefore, it must be entitled to the CSME, the provisions and what have you. Why, for example, we're not putting, we're allowing, let me put it this way, we're allowing Venezuelans, we're allowing Cubans and what have you to come into the Caribbean, some of them without visas and some, but yet, as soon as a Haitian arrives, there's a stigma. Just like how Denis spoke before about Guyanese people having to deal with that stigma of, hey, you're from Guyana. You know, they used to say in Barbados, here's a Guyana bench, sit there, wait there, and that type of thing. I think this is something for now. And when you look at it, most of the Haitians, Dominica had that same problem. Haitians coming into Dominica, but using Dominica as a stepping stone for moving on to places like the United States, the French islands, Martinique and Guadeloupe and what have you. So we have that situation. I think it's a question of how do we deal with what's happening in Haiti, first and foremost, from a CARICOM position. We keep hearing the political and economic situation, but what are we doing as part of CARICOM to ensure there's a better standard of living, a better standard of life for the Haitians that would probably allow them to stay home rather than say, hey, let me take this dangerous, and most of them take this dangerous ride by boat, rickety boats sometimes that would capsize. A lot of them you have. Look at the Bahamas. Bahamas have the detention center and a lot of Haitians in there. I think just recently a Haitian national would have won a case against the Bahamas government. And even when look at the shanty towns in the Bahamas government trying to clean up these shanty towns, because in most cases they tell you the people in there are Haitians. But these Haitians are using these shanty towns, as I said, and using these countries as stepping stones to go to the United States, probably seeking a better life. But as I said before, it's an issue CARICOM has to deal with. Deal with it strongly. We cannot continue to just be talking about Haitians this and Haitians that, and yet we're not putting the infrastructure or we're not helping them to be part of the whole situation, to improve lives.
Do you get the impression, though, that CARICOM appears to be less vocal about the Haitian situation in recent times?
Well, yes, I get that situation because look at what's unfolding in Haiti. You have, for example, there was supposed to be a referendum on a new constitution. There's the political instability with President Jovenel Moïse as to whether or not he should be head of state. There are corruption allegations about him. Every day in Haiti, there are demonstrations, there are kidnappings, there are murders, and they have, because the people are looking for a better way of life. Now, what I'm saying, if for example, we make a concerted effort, and I'm not saying CARICOM has not been, but probably it is not enough. I mean, let's look at David Rudder, Haiti, I'm sorry. So long David Rudder sang that song. It is still applicable to Haiti today. And we're going to go into a CARICOM summit next week. And we're still going to issue the same communique and talk about, hey, we're going to try and speak or try and be more inclusive with the Haitian. I mean, as we say, Denis and the other people on the panel, when we talk about CARICOM thing, we normally say, oh, the communique written already. So you know what's in it.
Yeah, I think generally it's a fair point that both of you gentlemen have raised. But I agree with Peter to a large extent that we've paid lip service to the whole idea of regionalism. To us, it is an ideal, but when it comes to putting it into practice, that becomes another issue altogether. People essentially go to their narrow, a kind of self-interest, a kind of parochial self-interest. I think the OAS the Organization of American States has perhaps done a little bit more and has been far more vocal on the issue of Haiti than even CARICOM has been. I think CARICOM has been a rather tepid voice on the issue of Haiti. I think it needs to do far more because, and this comes down to enlightened self-interest. Because if there is a snake in your neighbor's house, you have a vested interest in trying to help your neighbor to kill the snake before it gets away and comes to your house. So what has been done has really not been enough in terms of addressing the challenges in a sustainable way in Haiti. We paid a kind of lip service to it. Every now and again we say, well, okay, we're going to try to send a CARICOM delegation to broker some talks. But the real issues are, and the real substantive issues which impede Haiti's socioeconomic development. Look, this is the first black-led republic. This is a proud country which has had obviously its own fair share of issues, but certainly has, it is possible for these issues to be resolved. It will take a community response and certainly not the kind of response that is going to contribute to the stigmatization of Haiti and Haitians. As I said, it's either Haiti is going to be a part of CARICOM or not. As it is a part of CARICOM and should be treated as such. We can't pay lip service to this whole idea of regionalism.
I think what will remain a big question, though, is the movement of the people of the Haitian nationals through Guyana, with them leaving the country illegally. And I think that is what the Guyana government appears to be holding on to as the reason for the reimposition of visas. They're saying that they're not opposed to Haitians coming to Guyana, but in the way that it appears as though there is people smuggling. Suriname's President Chandrika Prasad Santokhi has also raised that concern. In fact, I was reading a few weeks ago that the Surinamese government has launched a commission of inquiry into the whole question of the smuggling of Haitian nationals into Suriname, because their figures are pretty much similar to those of Guyana, showing up with large numbers of Haitians arriving illegally, but clearly leaving illegally, which fits in, according to both governments, to the concept of people smuggling. So that will certainly remain a big issue.
Right.
But
Dennis,
that will always be the problem.
Peter, we only have like 3 minutes remaining, and I promised Dennis that we would look at an issue relating to police promotions. Last week in the news, the government of Grenada issued a statement celebrating the fact that it won a case against a policeman who brought a discrimination case using that word while loosely, Senator Joseph, and he claimed that, for political and other reasons, he was blocked from being promoted. The matter went to court. The court ruled in the government's favor, saying that he could not substantiate his claim. And Dennis, we understand that's a big issue in Guyana as well, and we want to wrap up tonight on that issue. Dennis, you go right ahead. We only have B rolling.
Oh, yes. Well, today the Chief Justice ruled that the Police Service Commission could not necessarily entertain the concerns by a number of police officers who said that they felt as though they were being bypassed because there are pending disciplinary matters against them, and therefore they feel that those disciplinary matters ought not to have been a stumbling block to their promotion. Of course, after the High Court ruling, the Police Service Commission, which according to the President was suspended, went ahead nevertheless and issued a list of promotions, excluding those officers who had gone to court and including a number of officers who the Guyana government finds to be objectionable to the extent that they do not favor their promotion. So this is turning out to be a political battle of sorts, principally because the way the Police Service Commission is constructed, so to speak, is along political lines, with the opposition having nominees and the government having nominees, and people being perceived that as far as their alignment is concerned. And of course, any government coming into power will want to ensure that his or her quote-unquote police service commissioners are in office. We had seen back in 2017, I believe, when the coalition had entered office, that the then president had ordered the Police Service Commission not to go ahead with promotions. And that was, of course, ruled as being unconstitutional. But by that time, the then administration of Mr. David Granger had, in fact, had his commission in place. which is really the commission that's now in the center of this port battle, and went ahead with promotions then.
Denis, thank you so much for bringing light to bear on that situation, because a lot of times I think when we do the news in Grenada, people think that these issues are unique to us, and people get all swollen and make a fuss about these things, which by right probably they should, but on Beyond the Headlines we do try to take these beyond the headlines and dissect these issues. So gentlemen, we only have 30 seconds to say something that probably was on your mind. You really wanted to say it, but you only have 30 seconds. And Peter, I'm starting with you, and I'm counting 30.
Okay, just let me say, as I said before, the CARICOM leaders will be meeting for the annual summit next week, July 1st to 4th. What I am fascinated about this time at this summit is that the leaders will have no excuse to say that they have to leave and go back because they have burning issues at home. The summit will be virtual, so they have no reason to run.
Lord, Peter, you're throwing words like when probably an Antiguan falls out to the Grenadian. Let's leave that right. No confusion tonight.
Well, taking up two things on the summit, we look forward to it. Of course, Prime Minister Gaston Brown will be taking up the chairmanship on the rotation basis of CARICOM. So let's see what his agenda will be. A lot will, of course, be about the issue of regional travel and about cutting, for example, taxes, air taxes, by the way, airport taxes. He's done that, for example, for Antigua and Barbuda as of today. A very quick thing on vaccination. People say, for example, the vaccines were developed too quickly. But I ask people when they go and buy to buy the newest iPhone, I don't hear people say, well, why was this developed so quickly? I mean, the technology is there. It's just a matter of upgrading on it. It's just a matter of developing on it. So I don't know why this issue. And the second thing about vaccination, why do people, I don't hear the same level of opprobrium and skepticism when people are given a prescription with a diabetes drug or heart disease drug. I don't hear the people say, well, don't use that drug because it could be a problem. I'm not so sure about this level of laser focus on vaccination, on vaccines, especially COVID-19 vaccines. In other words, if you're going to not accept any sort of traditional medicine, I understand. But if you are going to accept some traditional medicine and not the others, I have a serious problem with that.
So, Peter, it looked like if we good friend lobbying for Matt Hancock's job, but it's given, it's already taken, eh? But carefully, I saw some cameras that might be over your head. Be very careful.
Be very careful.
I make no comment on that.
No comment whatsoever. Denis, we are so delighted to have you with us that we've left the last word for you.
Thank you. I think that the CARICOM leaders should seek to address frontally the whole question of what appears to be vaccine apartheid. Even though countries are getting the right vaccines, brand name vaccines that are approved by the WHO, it appears as though key Western nations appear bent to excluding people from traveling unless they get vaccines that are manufactured in the Western world. So the region needs to take a firm stance in that as they go into their summit next week.
Right. So we'll see what comes out of that CARICOM meeting next week. Peter says they have no excuse to say they have to leave early. Even if they fall out with their friend, they have to stay put online. I would like to say a very special thank you to my very good friends who agreed to join us on tonight's edition of Beyond the Headlines. Garfield Burford out of Antigua, looking over to his homeland, Jamaica. Peter Richards, he's that great Lucian who is, squatting in Trinidad and Tobago, and Denis Chabrol. Denis Chabrol. It is so great to meet Denis virtually for the first time after hearing that voice since I was a young girl on Canada Radio News.
The Voice of America.
Yes. Voice of America. All the way back then, 1987. So Denis Chabrol on the South American continent. I mean, we're just so happy that technology allows us to break through those geographical barriers. I like to say the
continental Caribbean.
Sorry? Sorry? I didn't hear. Come again? What did he say, Peter?
That's one for you.
No. His friend Bud Wilkinson would say, we're the Caribbean on South in South America.
Oh,
That's
the
what he
Caribbean in South
said.
America. Roger that. I agree.
Continental Caribbean, he said. Continental
Right? And for those of you who have been wondering what RS means as far as Peter Richards is concerned, he was deemed the regional squatter. I don't have to beg him to stay for the remainder of the program, so I'm squealing on him. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Not me. It was your friend in the Caribbean of South America that gave you that title this evening. It was not I. All right, so gentlemen, thank you so much. And some people have been asking online, Ms. Campbell, where's your co-host this evening? Well, the word is out that they have abandoned me. Peter Richards has been sucking his friend behind me and has announced that there's a lawsuit. So everybody say, Papa, don't want to have nothing to do with Odette. They dropped me like a hot potato tonight. But that's all right. I've made it. My good friends have stood with me tonight. Thank you so much to my co-host who said, nah, we ain't coming on. We here. You're facing some kind of legal action. But that's all right. We'll see how that works out. Thanks, everybody. On behalf of the entire team here at the G-Men, I'm Odette Campbell saying so long for now. And we'll continue going beyond the headlines every Monday night. Thanks, Guy, for helping elucidate those matters tonight.
Bye-bye.
Most welcome. Take care.
Have a good night, Odette.
All the best.
Blessings.